I'm David Denault, and today, part 4 of our series on UFOs, aliens, and abductions.
I'm John Gomez. Stand by for 2 alien abduction stories.
This is a special report from About Space Today.
Do you want to believe? That's a question that many have said yes to. Well, today, Special Report will test your beliefs on alien abductions. First, the story of Betty and Barney Hill.
Late at night, Betty sees this unusual light that seems to be maneuvering.
This light stopped in midair directly in front of us. The car motor stalled, and at that point, I realized that they undoubtedly planned to take us on board.
And then the next thing is that they're 35 miles down the road, and they have no idea how they got that far down the road. In September 1961, Barney and Betty Hill were an American couple who claimed they were abducted by extraterrestrials in a rural portion of the state of New Hampshire from September 19th and 20th. It was the first widely publicized report of an alien abduction in the United States. Both Barney and Betty underwent separate hypnosis sessions with Dr. Benjamin Simon, a medical expert in hypnosis. Here is actual audio.
When this light stopped in midair directly in front of us, the car motor stalled, and at that point, I realized that they undoubtedly planned to take us on board. They had tracked an unidentified craft at 2:14 a.m., just about the time we estimate that the UFO left.
All right, Captain, it wasn't me. It's those people, you can see it all like look like a big canteen with windows.
On the way out of the ship, Betty asks the alien, "Where are you from? Because no one will believe me." The alien pointed to a star cluster, and under hypnosis, she drew that star pattern. It took a NASA scientist over 9 years, but he found the star cluster light years away. Most of Betty Hill's notes, tapes, and other items have been placed in permanent collection at the University of New Hampshire, her alma mater. The Barney and Betty Hill story really seems to be undisputable.
Well, David, it is the most widely investigated UFO abduction story in history. And then after reading about the event and all the tests and the interviews that the Hills were given and they were put through, it's not so hard to believe that they thought they were abducted.
Well, John, the star cluster is the most, I think, significant in what Betty Hill described. And as I say, it took 9 years for NASA scientists to finally discover where that cluster was. Now, our second episode involves a crew out in a forest in Arizona. And during an interview on the Joe Rogan show, Travis Walton remembers.
When I regained consciousness, it wasn't real quick. It wasn't real walking right up. It was real slow. It was dim. My consciousness was kind of like in and out for a while. I didn't know where I was. The pain and the feeling that I was mortally wounded, something was so wrong inside. I felt like I was dying. And this is what really fueled the panic when I finally laid eyes on these creatures.
Where were you?
I was lying on my back on a raised table. There was a light above me. No one closest to me. I felt really weak. I didn't have enough strength to do much. So when my arm contacted him, he just fell back very unexpectedly easy into the other one. And I rolled off the table in the other direction. They came around the table, and the 3 of them were coming towards me. And I just grabbed something from behind me, an object off of the shelf there, and started swinging it at them.
What was the object?
It was just some large, long cylinder or rod, glass, some clear material. I wasn't studying it. I was looking at them and swinging wildly, screaming threats. They stopped, and I was planning on attacking more fully, just making way past them. The only doorway I could see was on the other side of them.
And it looked like a doorway?
Yeah, it looked like a doorway, just,
And what did they look like?
I guess it's a pretty typical description nowadays. Very large eyes, hairless, 2 eyes, nose, mouth. I didn't see them speak or no change in the expressions. To me, that in the face of all the screaming and the fear that I was projecting, their lack of reaction probably just added to my panic. But
Did they feel like they were a living creature, or did they feel like they were a robot?
well, they were without expression, I'll say that. But, I've had 45 years to think about that. In more recent years, I think, well, maybe if they're telepathic and it's developed enough to where they don't need to talk, they also don't need facial expression.
Right.
And so their ability to communicate with each other would be much richer and more complete than we have. And that was the most terrifying experience of my life. But when I tell the story and try to relate to people, I'm trying to communicate what I experienced and how utterly, utterly traumatic that was and how it was so devastating. I was, on the verge of catatonic for weeks after it happened. But I don't want to relate this story in order to inspire fear, because I've had enough time to think about it that I think that it was unwarranted, that my reaction was just due to my ignorance of the situation. But if I thought if they had some sort of sinister intentions, it'd be a done deal. They wouldn't be sneaking around, hiding, and
Right.
I believe with that level of technology. Look at it this way. Human beings, just virtually everything technological that we have is just a few hundred years old. Before that, the most technological thing we had was fire. And in just the last 50 years, the progress of our science has grown to far overshadow everything we had accomplished in thousands of years before that. So I'm thinking what astronomers tell us about these other star systems is that they could be hundreds of thousands, millions, or maybe billions of years older than us. So if we accomplished the kind of technology that we have in a few decades, what is possible with millions of years of development? I mean, we couldn't begin to recognize what they're capable of.
Well, David, I don't know how you feel about it, but that to me is one of the more fascinating stories and experiences that somebody who claims to have been abducted has told. And I think it's one of the more honest ones. For me, I think one of the things that stands out is not only was he gone for 5 or 7 days, completely missing, nobody could find him. They had search parties going out. They were looking everywhere. He shows up a week later, almost 12 miles from where he was abducted, with no clothes on, punctures all over his body, even in his eyes, and he's trying to make a collect phone call to get help. Now, I don't know about our listeners. I don't know about you, David, but to me, that screams something went wrong. Call Travis Walton whatever you want. I'm of the belief that I think something happened to him and unfortunately, I can't tell you or our listeners if any details about tests he may have undergone, because we simply don't know. He met with ufologists. He didn't meet with the Air Force or the CIA. He was meeting with UFO researchers. Again, a very, very interesting take. For me, if I had to put money on which one of these two stories was the most believable or the most real, I believe Travis Walton's story is very real.
These two alien abduction stories are for you to decide if they really happened. And if you have liked our reports, click like, follow, and subscribe. Thank you for taking time from where you work or from your home to join us today. And next Wednesday, I've added a special video report on news that the Rendlesham Forest UFO encounter may have been a clandestine project between the U.S. and Great Britain. For my co-host John Gomez, I'm David Denault.
This has been a special report from About Space Today.